call the Charter Revision Commission regular meeting of March 13th, 2025 to order. And can we go around the room for roll call, please?
Sheila Bailey, Nikki Price,
Bill Dumont, Tom Carmona, Mike Ludwig,
Anne Marie Nasuda,
Zach Zanoni,
Bob Prasadi,
Laura Ray Anderson.
Rob Anderson.
and Ken Nelson. And next, I'll entertain a motion to approve the minutes of March 6th, 2025 special meeting.
So moved. Second.
Any comments, corrections, or concerns? Seeing none, all in favor? Opposed? Abstentions? One abstention. Bill Dumont. And next is Town Attorney's Correspondence, Chapter 2, Section 4, Vacancies. We did receive paperwork from the Town Attorney. Have people had a chance to review it? And questions?
Questions?
No questions?
I knew something sounded wrong. Remember last week?
What's that,
I
Tom?
knew something sounded wrong in that.
the town attorney actually
there it was.
said, give Tom kudos.
Here we go.
Straight out of his mouth.
Right, so the new language in the vacancy doesn't force a counselor to vote for anyone they don't want to. That was the key.
No, the key
Right.
was for the new, because it doesn't force anyway,
Right, which is the
because,
key.
and it's,
Yep.
the only people voting are the people, members of that party.
Okay.
So, Tom's question from last week that he wanted clarification on was whether that verbiage in the first sentence where it said notwithstanding any provision of this charter, including but not limited,
Yeah.
we didn't have to the contrary, and
Right.
so the attorney said, that just says that for this one item, it carved out in the charter that we can pass, an appointment with less than 6 votes. So if it's a D who left and there's 4 Ds on the council, those 4 Ds on 4 votes can approve the replacement for a vacancy.
So should there be an asterisk here that it only applies to vacancies?
No, because it's in the vacancy section. It's strictly in the vacancies. So this section is, when you look under the charter, the red line
Right, I
charter.
get that, but 10 years from now, folks,
There is in the charter and in another section, which don't ask me to quote you the section, it says, other than to set another meeting or to adjourn, nothing can pass with less than 6 votes.
Okay,
So
all right.
this carves out an exception just under this
Then it's
circumstance.
consistent with policies and procedures. then.
Correct.
Okay.
And then the other thing is that I misled the town attorney when you all were talking, that I thought you wanted the Board of Ed to be able to fill their own vacancies in the same manner, but you really just meant the same, just that party gets to vote on the council for a Board of Ed vacancy. So we clarified that with adding council members of the party and town council down below.
Thank you.
I don't know why I set it up so that we talked about it here and then voted down here on unfinished business.
That's okay. That's okay. Next is going to be Chapter 6, Section 4, Duties of the Council on the Budget.
That's a big one. Yes. So, on our schedule, our proposed schedule, all the other areas in the charter, like under town manager's responsibilities and the estimates, departmental estimates, the town attorney didn't look at that. I just put in the dates that we all agreed upon and had a consensus on. So this section strictly is setting the verbiage that we all discussed, and as far as the greater than 7% automatically hitting the referendum. And so the town attorney's office gave us the verbiage afterward. This is why I was starting to tell the girls when we first came in the room. The packets tonight that you have, there are some changes in here to the red line version. So if you made notes on the one I emailed you, feel free to transfer your notes onto them, but we should all be looking at the documents I passed out tonight. Because there were a few last minute things after the town attorney's office had given us that verbiage, I looked at it and realized that we hadn't addressed what day the referendum's gonna be on in that verbiage. There was also one other section that I could remember what it was. Oh, yeah. And I took the liberty of updating the charter and, the red line charter for things that we were gonna discuss tonight, because we had a kind of a consensus, just so we're ready for you to say, okay, Sheila, let's go, or let's not, just so we had something to set the public hearing and I can publish it. So, another thing that we hadn't discussed, but we discussed in another part of the charter under, the referendum for capital expenditures, that, it would be a vote by the electors of the town of Enfield, and the commission came to a consensus for that. Well, I felt that if we needed to put it into the referendum vote, and we hadn't done that, and we hadn't even discussed that.
Okay.
So that's something on the next section of it, when we go to vote, or you go to vote, that you're gonna have to talk about and decide if you're in consensus about. We didn't discuss it, but it made sense to me, if we had it there, we should pull it over into the other referendum, the budget referendum. Is that clear?
Mhm. Mike? You good? Okay.
So I have one question.
Go ahead, Tom.
Okay, I just want to make sure. I don't know if this was I got mixed up already, whether this is something you handed out tonight, or whether I had from before. It's the email from Mark dated Tuesday, March 11th. Okay, so in that email, he's asking a question, and the question is, what happens if if the council approves a budget greater than 7%, it fails at the referendum, and so then the town council has 7 days to figure it out.
No.
She fails at referendum.
It
Fails.
automatically
Goes to
goes to 7.
And the town council has 7 days to figure out how to get from where it was to 7, okay? But in his email, he asked the question, you don't say how you're gonna do that.
Exactly.
And I know we talked about that, but I don't think the charter has to say how.
That was his big question, and I guess, and he said, the commission may decide they're not gonna address it in the charter, but
Right.
his big question, that he did call me and discuss it as well, is that, as an attorney, he's always looking for the worst case scenario if that the most unlikely thing happens. So he says, what if, they go back, the referendum fails, they have to take 1% off.
Yeah.
And, the council can't decide, is it all coming off from the Board of Ed? Are we sharing it with, every department? And they can't come to an agreement, either the council short a member, maybe you've got a vacancy. If it's a stalemate, what happens then? Like, before it was an automatic, if the council couldn't come to an agreement, went back to the town manager's budget, right? So you knew you had to come to an agreement, otherwise you're gonna get the town manager's proposed. So he's saying, okay, what do we do now if the council can't come to an agreement?
Really?
We go to session and we sit there until we figure it out.
I think so.
Period. We're putting it on ourselves, meaning the council, that if we're gonna go and ask the taxpayers to pay more than 7% in 1 year, we better have a god-darn good reason why and believe in it to sell it. And if it fails, that's on the council, and they will come sit in this room until it works out. If it's a 5-5, well, then somebody's got to give and take somewhere, because we don't leave knowing we have 7 days, which I'm good with, because that puts the pressure back on us to fix it. So either we didn't do a good job selling it to the public, or we need to sit at this table and figure out how we're going to move forward. It's not up to the charter to say how we do that, because every single year things change. What happens if we have a major school issue and we can't pull the money from that? We may have to defund the town a lot more than the board, but only at that time will we know the circumstances to make those decisions. And it's going to be something big like that, because that's why we're asking for more than 7%. So Zach?
So I wanted to agree with you 100%. The language that's in here now, I think at the time made sense because when the manager proposes his own budget or her own budget, there's a context behind all of those numbers. But for instance, the proposed idea that Mark had suggested here of just doing a flat line decrease across the board without any context, I think it could be really dangerous. It could be really dangerous. It makes sense because there was actually a budget in place here. This would just be a number, and we need to realize behind every number there's a meaning. So I do agree. I think it should be left open for the council to handle.
Okay. Anne Marie?
I was just gonna add a comment that we kind of kicked this around a little bit last week too, in the sense that I think, Chairman, you mentioned that when you go to, if we have to go to referendum and it's 7 point whatever that number, 8 or whatever that number is, you already have an idea at that point that it's going to be going to referendum, and you will already kick the tires to kind of figure out your plan B in the thoughts that if this does not pass, what you're going to end up having to cut. So you will have already had a head start to have discussions, and so hopefully you won't need this full 7 days, but you will, yes, to your point, as you said, it may not automatically be just from the largest expenditure in the budget. You may have to look at all the items on that list. So I think that we had talked to that point.
Right, and along those lines, Anne Marie, I think that part of selling the referendum would be, this is what we want to do. And if it fails, this is what we have to do.
Right.
And then it puts that tough decision
Onus on them.
on the taxpayers, which, if we don't want to cut, 20 police officers or whatever the case may be, that's a decision of the voter, but at least they're going to share, the grief.
Mhm.
So, did you have your hand up, Laura?
On
No, Bob.
Yeah, I think the wordage in here is appropriate, and I am all for the council coming in and hashing it out. And if we have to sit down for 7 days to get it hashed out, it's the council's responsibility to take care of it, period. Hopefully, we would never get to that point.
Right.
But I'm just saying that, if it has to come from point A, B, C, or D, I think at that point, we would probably already kind of like have an idea of where we would cut from.
Whoops.
Can I just ask a quick question?
Mike was first, then you, Ken, Zach.
So Sheila, just to be clear, that provision of the defaults to the manager's budget is pulled out, right? Just want to make sure.
Yes, if you look at the red
Yeah.
line,
The yellow in the document?
that's Mark's document, but on the charter that I gave you a
Okay.
copy of in your packet on page 18,
Got it.
all of that is out.
I vote, personally, I always hated that provision. The council is the tax authority, and I hated it, and it was a cop-out for any council that, we couldn't make a decision, we're going to default to the manager. I'm glad that's coming out per this discussion, and I agree. I think, look, I'm only speaking for myself. At a 7% increase, and again, government's important, but sorry, there's things that aren't that important when you're talking about cutting. The council at that should be easily come up with cuts. It shouldn't take 7 days. And I'm sorry, look, at some point, the reliance on a certain percentage on what government taxes, folks need to be able to say, look, it should be it shouldn't take 7 days, quite frankly. And if it does, then the council's it's not performing its main duty, which is the tax authority of the town of Enfield and a council manager form of government. And I think this is a good thing, actually. This is, I think, in my opinion, a benefit of having this provision, because it takes away a provision that I never agreed with, which I always felt was sort of a cop-out if the council can't come up with an agreement on the tax rate, which is what we're elected to do mainly, and it defaults to a manager budget, which I'm glad, I have to admit, this is actually a bonus I didn't think of when we did this. So in my opinion, this is actually a good thing. I'm just speaking for myself. Because again, the elected body is if we've talked about this for 2 months, is directly responsible to the voter, then it should be up to them to make a tough cut. It should be up to them to make a tax increase, whatever it may be. Not a manager who's, again, a paid individual that's responsible to the council. So I think this actually writes the government even a little better, in just my humble opinion, better than it was prior to this discussion as a group. So thank you, Sheila. I think this is actually a good thing.
Well, that's part of, I think, what Sheila was talking about, is say there is a vacancy and it's 5-5. I mean, one party could just say, you know what? No. And know that by them saying no, it automatically reverts instead of having to sit
Right.
here and
Exactly.
fight it out. Either party, it doesn't matter. So we will, like Bob said, sit in this room
Yep.
and come up with some conclusion. Zach?
So I agree with everything you said, Mike. My question is, and it's just for my own understanding, let's say the council didn't come to a conclusion within those 7 days. What are the implications of that in terms of setting the mill rate if the council could not come to agreement on budget and there's no?
Well, it's the setting the mill rate isn't the issue because the budget automatically sets at 7%. How we move that money around is the question. So the town can still go forward. The residents are still gonna get a 7% tax increase, which is big, not as big as what the town asked for. I see this as a major CIP issue that we have to address. And it's over 800 and whatever that limit is. I mean, it's gonna be something big like that, Zach, that is gonna force any council to appropriate more than $12 million more than the year before. But like I said, without knowing the circumstances, we could speculate for months. So we have to come up with it in
Well,
7 days. I understand what you're
appreciate the question.
saying.
I appreciate the clarification on the mill rate, because that point would probably slip my mind on that. So on the financial standpoint, the money's there at 7% and the council just has to come to terms with where it's going.
Yep.
Thank you.
So like.
Yeah, I certainly understand things are very polarized, but I think for folks, quick little, I mean, Republicans and Democrats did this just 6 years ago, where the state cut the education budget by $5 million, and we sat every single week for 2 months in public, hammering out very difficult cuts across the entire budget, done in public. So there is a little reference for folks to your question. I agree, it's a fair question. But if adults, whatever's next to their name, can't sit in a room and do what's best for the town, and quite frankly, every single one of them should be voted out, no matter what your party is. So it's fair.
But along those lines, Mike, something like that was unexpected,
Yep.
out of the council's control. So you had two choices: butcher the town or go out for this referendum and tell the taxpayers this is because of the state.
Right.
Do you want us to butcher the town or do you want us to raise your taxes to absorb it? Which had no party affiliation in this room. It was out of the control. So that's what I mean by a pretty strong situation to even end up in this place. So if it was lower, then it might be a little more dicier, but so. All right, so we're all in agreement on that?
Yes.
And
Yeah,
Sheila?
thank you,
Can I
Sheila.
just say
Sure.
one thing? I just want to be totally upfront with the commission because we have the town attorney's opinion here and I want you all to be clear what I changed. So that, so that gray part that says vote by electors of the town of Enfield, I just want you to know that that wasn't town attorney, so that when you vote, you know that. And also on, not on that opinion, but in your red line charter, where it says, under that same section, the budget shall be submitted to and approved by a referendum. I added the word or disapproved because, you know, that's the, so I just want to be upfront with, there's a little bit of difference what you're gonna see in the charter versus what was here in that opinion. Okay? I just want to be upfront.
Crossing your T's, dotting your I's.
Just have your initials etched in, that's all,
It's
right?
It's on TV.
Sheila, do you have to formally respond to Mark's email?
No, this was, he knows that anytime he when I ask him for an opinion on behalf of you, and he responds to me that I share it with you. He knows that I'm sharing it with you all. So, I mean, I could get back to him and tell him that the commission, if you so decide, wishes to leave it open in the charter for the council to handle. That's fine, I can do that if you'd like me to. He just is bringing up issues that he's, you know, doing his job.
Laura, did you have anything?
No, I mean, to Zach's point, I did just want to say, like, just because things aren't like super fleshed out in here doesn't mean the council can't like put something more specific in policies and procedures.
I don't
right?
want them to, I'm just.
So like, I just like, to the extent like folks work, like, I just want to say that, like, if you're silent on it, they can do it, should there be an opportunity to. So like, that's honestly, I'm chill, well, you know, I hate the referendum thing altogether, but at that point, they could do it. So that's all I wanted to
Got
be
it.
nice about.
Nikki, anything?
No, awesome.
Sure?
Yeah.
You're awful quiet lately. All right.
Digesting everything.
All right, any more on that? Okay, we're gonna move on to new business. Review of the Charter Review Commission draft report and red line charter.
Now, I know that I did not give you guys nearly the amount of time I intended to. I tried. It really was, everything was moving all week long. This is pretty much all I did all week, other than didn't do my other job. So I think that the commission is going to have to decide. We have a meeting scheduled for next week. I didn't give you a lot of time to review all this. Well, we're gonna have to talk, maybe we'll talk about it when we decide about the date of the public hearing. So we'll know what our schedule is or should be coming up. So next week, I'm anticipating that you're gonna decide, because of the timing that I need to get the notice in the newspaper, as well as publish these to our website so that the residents can see everything, that we're going to probably, I would assume, have this public hearing around the 25th or the 26th, if that works.
So,
We have a meeting scheduled on the 27th and the 3rd. That would allow us to discuss public hearing results on the 27th and finalize all paperwork for the 3rd to go into the, files in my office to the council on the 7th.
So what I was gonna suggest is, I'm gonna be honest, I didn't have time to go through the whole document. I don't think many of us did, is at this point, we schedule the public hearing because next meeting, we can discuss these changes and we can make the changes after the public hearing, if there are any. I think we've been very thorough on every one of these issues that made it this far to where everybody knows we're in consensus. We may not be 100% in agreement, but you know, everything's moving forward. So instead of tying us up tonight, just sitting here reading a document that we could all do at home, I would say let's work on scheduling the public hearing with Sheila, and then we'll adjourn, and then we'll meet back here next Thursday and discuss anything that we've had a chance to read over, if there's anything. And when Sheila, if you could send out a notice a little before and ask, because if nobody has any issues with the current document, I really don't think we need to meet next week. We go right to the public hearing. Because remember, we added meetings because we got nervous. I did anyways. But we did good. And so I'd rather be where we are than be behind it. So if you guys are okay with that.
I also discussed with the attorney's office at what point they have to review our entire charter. But I believe, and I guess I want to get your input, that it would be a waste of their time to do that now, because it could change after the public hearing. You could all say, you know, the public has a good point about this, let's change this. It could change after the council reviews it. So I think it should be at the very end stage, if you all agreed.
I do too.
Yeah, great.
Yes.
All right, so I do want to back up because we did not get consensus on the unfinished business, chapter 2, section 4, vacancies. Now, we talked about it. Everybody, I believe, is in agreement with the language.
That was to add to the contrary and council members.
Yep. So we have consensus on that.
Well, I was concerned that you were forcing a council person to vote. This takes care of it. Yeah.
Bob?
No, I'm good.
Okay.
Yeah,
And then B, the chapter 6, section 4, duties of the council on the budget.
I'm just abstaining.
Okay, we have one abstention. Everybody,
I'm sorry, which part?
Yeah, sorry.
we're backing up, Tom, because unfinished business, we didn't vote because it kind of shifted to new business. And it's not a vote, it's a consensus, so
So which one are we looking at now?
The one on
number four,
What we just talked about then.
we already talked about it, but I just needed consensus for Sheila so she can add it to the documents.
Are you okay with what, yeah?
Yeah, yep. Okay, so we have consensus on that with one abstention. Okay, good. So that takes care of that. Now, public hearing, Sheila, you tell us.
So I think that, and Nikki's got her phone there with her calendar, but I think that we should schedule the public hearing for the 25th or the 26th. That leaves us open to meet next Thursday, the meeting we've already got. If you find things that you want, that I maybe misunderstood when I redlined the charter or whatever, and gives me time to make the, any changes and publish the public hearing. And if we have it on the 25th or the I think the 25th is a Tuesday, the 26th is a Wednesday.
Yes.
We would still meet on the 27th to go over anything that the public brought to your attention. And then we can finalize and put the final okay on the 3rd before it gets submitted to officially the draft report.
I'm good with that. Now, we hold the public hearing.
This is a Charter Revision Commission public hearing, not a council public
So we'll
hearing.
do it in the council chambers, and then we've got to make sure the chambers are available.
Right, so are those 2 days good for everyone? And then I'll find out which day they're available?
Is the 25th of a board meeting?
That's why I asked.
Yes, I think it's probably gonna be the 26th.
Yeah,
Yes,
I think, yeah, I think,
Because
yeah.
it's the second and fourth
Yeah.
Tuesday, right?
Sometimes we're able to bump, but we have a council meeting that night?
We have, no, there'll be a.
I was gonna say, that's not a holiday week.
Board meeting on the 25th.
Okay,
So
oh, yes, you're right.
School board, excuse me.
Yes, you're right, yep,
that Wednesday, the 26th, I think might be a better.
the best.
I agree.
Yeah, I'm good with
Okay.
the 26th.
All right, I will make sure to reserve the room. And I will send you all a confirmation of that. And I know we can't discuss things over email, but I can set a meeting date over email.
And we're gonna do that. What time do you guys want to start the public hearing? Sheila, have you been through this before? I mean, what is the turnout expected?
I thought we were gonna get a bigger turnout on the first public hearing. I think that we'll have a bigger turnout than the first one because, people have called my office saying, can you tell me what they're suggesting it changes? So they're interested.
George will be there.
George, we
George
have
will be
one.
How much time did you
I have no idea. I think.
6:30?
Yeah, I was
Meetings?
gonna say the
Yeah.
same thing, Mike, 6:30, and
Yeah.
then, I mean, other than the 7% cap on the budget, I don't know that there's anything really big in this that stayed in the document that people would be upset about. Go ahead, Bob.
Yeah, no, not to interrupt. Just looking, in regard to the public hearing. Obviously, we have to have some sort of guidelines, but are we gonna give unlimited time that somebody wants to speak? Or are we gonna give them a time frame and let everybody speak and then come back? That's something that we have to decide,
Right, the rules of the public hearing. So, I mean, that's up to you guys. It's, somebody can take the document and sit there and read the document page by page, looking at all the red lines without doing their homework, while George is sitting there patiently with his pre-written list. And that's where we could get into a situation where, that's up to you guys. I mean, on the council, we don't,
5 minutes. I'm just like,
5 minutes. I think go by
Right,
council,
and
Yeah.
the council rules as far as that goes.
then, so twice, so
comfortable
5
with
minutes and
5
3
and
minutes?
3?
5 and 3, that's how the council rules are.
yeah, that's.
Twice, so you get me, let someone,
Like
just in
just
case
once
someone
in 5.
wants to, I mean.
well, I'd even be okay with 5 and 5
I
because
agree,
it's
I
a
was
big
thinking the same thing,
document.
yeah.
But at least that's going to, when she publishes it,
Yeah.
and the people see this, I think they should know right up front that they are gonna do their research on the document before they come up. I'm sure George has a list already he's working on No, you love the document? Anyways, so I'm okay with 5 and 5. And with me, we're elected, and if we're here till 11:30, we are.
Yeah.
I don't want to stop timeline because this is one public hearing. It is the constitution of the town, and the people have a right to say whatever they want. Sheila?
Usually the rules are not part of the notice. Would you like me to put general rules as part of the notice as far as the
Yes.
5? And the last public hearing that the commission held, remember, we allowed people to send by email until midnight. Are we going to allow that again?
I feel really, I acknowledge out loud that like that could mean people sending us a lot of things, but I feel really strongly that we should. Like, I just don't know people's life situations, like vacations aside, like if somebody is not able to get here for whatever reason, if they've got work, whatever, I feel really strongly about providing that opportunity.
Do we want to provide a Zoom link?
Zoom links, if it's interactive, it can be very difficult to manage. If people are allowed to call in for questions. It's one thing for them to watch it, live via Zoom. I think that could
Right.
be difficult. I think as far as administratively, allowing them to email until midnight would be maybe better.
My problem with an email is somebody can write 8 pages, and that's not 5 and 5. It's an unfair advantage to a person who is held by different standards.
Good point. I mean, but couldn't somebody send us an email and then also come if they felt like it?
Well, why wouldn't they just come?
I don't know.
Right,
We're offering them 2 opportunities. I'm just saying,
5.
like,
And again, we have the ability as a commission, if it's 8:00 and certain people want to come back up for a third time, we have a right to suspend the rules
That's right.
and make a motion to change it. Now, if it's 1:30 in the morning
yeah.
and people are beating the same issues, then, but that's up to us to make that decision. So again, until we're in the room.
Not to overdo rules or whatever, but could we say like, could we put a limit on what we're gonna consider via email? Could we say like, so many words or less or something? Pages, I don't know, something
Well,
like
then
that.
you get in, I know, and my wife's watching, I'm sure she's gonna laugh. People tell me I type with an email, or I type with a tone, like a certain tone about my emails.
Mhm.
And an email can be interpreted in so many different ways, just like this document. And, we don't have somebody to say, excuse me, could you clarify what you're trying to ask of us or explain to us? It's very one-sided, and, who's gonna take the time to respond to this person? Or I just think, we commit, all of you have committed a lot of time to this. And, George has been at every meeting. She has been at every meeting. I mean, if the people really wanna come, this is their opportunity. One time in 10 years that they can come and discuss this document, So it's not asking too much. We ask them to go out and vote every 2 years. Go ahead, Bob. Oh,
My
sorry,
opinion-
I didn't see you. Sorry.
Okay, my opinion, it's a public hearing, you show up, you want your voice to be heard, you do it. I'm not in favor of emails coming in.
That's what I
Period.
was saying.
I know, period. I'm just reinforcing that. Period, end of report. That's my ordeal. And, my opinion in regard to any sort of public hearing, especially, on this. We had people with POCD. We had emails last year. Emails came in prior to just like when we started doing this, but we gave everybody that opportunity to speak, not only once, twice, 3, maybe 4 times, depending on the number of people that are there.
Mhm.
We let people speak until they were done stating their opinions regarding every aspect that they wanted to talk about.
Mhm.
So I would like to, follow along with that same,
Okay. That,
So my only some question or concern about this is, for instance, I think back to when I provided comments to the council about the plan of conservation and development. I more succinctly provided my comments during the public hearing in a way that I think was more conversational and the council could be able to understand. But I went page by page by page and provided a much more in-depth commentary that I uploaded and then emailed to the council so that they could look into my comments with more detail should they choose to, because I don't think some of my comments were necessarily beneficial for the entire public to see and waste time on camera for, but I think that extra detail in addendum in the email was helpful. That's just kind of where I'm at with that.
Right, but then you're not going on record. When you're speaking, you're handing a document to 11 members and Tom has no idea what you're handing us. Like when George does his, George gives us exactly what he's saying to the general public. And he just gives us a copy of it, which is good, okay? But he doesn't vary off that unless he starts talking about something else. There is nothing in his documents that he does not say on the floor. And that's my concern, is it's a public hearing. And how many times have we watched a public hearing where Mike Ludwig comes up and says something and it triggers something in Tom? And I don't mean trigger like that. I mean, it's like, Tom, oh yeah, that reminded me. And now Tom can come back up and talk, and we're all in a room. And I agree with Bob, 100%. All the public hearings I've done, we've never accepted emails, and I just think it's opening up something we can't control. What's 5 in 5 minutes in an email? He reads faster than I do. I mean.
Yeah. And then who's gonna read the emails? Because someone has to actually read them.
I'll read it. I'm not suggesting, I would read them all. I mean, I feel like that's our responsibility. I just I think I'm outnumbered here, but just let me say my piece. We do this at the legislature. It's long. And every single thing that's submitted is a part of every single thing that's submitted is a part of public record. I know it's not perfect either way. Either there's somebody that's going to be left out because of some circumstance we don't know, or we're going to have a whole bunch of stuff to read, and somebody from the public who wants to read all of it or know it all is going to have a lot in front of them and maybe shouldn't have to do that. But I always err on the side of I don't want there to be a smart person who has to visit a sick family member in Kansas who could have had a really good idea to share with us that they weren't able to, right? I would rather read thousands of pages and stay up all night and read thousands of pages of things and get a good idea from somebody and make sure they have that opportunity rather than only limit it to people that showed up. I know that sounds maybe crazy, but I feel like I'm not comfortable with it.
All set, Laura?
Yeah.
Anne Marie?
3 points. One, just understanding, and for myself, public hearing, this is similar to what we did before where we're listening. There's not a conversation back, correct?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Second, when we gather the comments and such, similar to what we did in December, are we tasked with, or is our responsibility as a review committee to then banter that back and forth in another meeting to figure out if we're going to make those changes, if they make sense, correct? Okay. And then thirdly, to Laura's point, wouldn't town residents get an opportunity though, when it actually, if they can't make this meeting, when it comes to the town council meeting, when you're bringing that back up for vote, they, during public comments, could then have another 8 minutes to have a conversation about the referendum. So they actually do get a second opportunity to voice their comments,
Right.
which become public record. Would that be correct?
That is correct, but back up to your second question.
Yeah.
When this public hearing is to address the document done.
Done.
This is no new ideas, and if somebody
Agreed.
comes and says, well, I think that, Sheila should make twice what she makes, that is not in this document, so it's not up for discussion. So we're sticking to, what Laura said we did. We gave the whole town a chance to email us what they would like to be seen. And we saw some things that were a little, and then we saw things that were totally legit. So this is to address, did we meet the changes that those people submitted? And what does the general public think about those changes in this document? Not about new language. Go ahead, Sheila.
I just wanted to also point out, as part of the charter revision statutes, the council is also going to have to hold a charter revision
Public hearing. Right, that's what she was saying.
That's what I was referring to.
Yeah, not just a public participation, but an actual hearing for the charter
Yeah,
revision.
okay. And just a caveat though, so if there was something blatant that was brought up by a resident of something that we had proposed, I'm using Mark Serrato's example, like maybe we should have thought of that, maybe it's a small tweak. That would be something we could potentially go back and do. It's a blatant thing that we went, oh, that's not very clear. We need to maybe massage that a little bit, but I know definitely we're not doing an ad, correct?
Right, but it could be as little as that, or it could be somebody comes up and lights us all up with a totally different perspective that none of us picked up on, and we may remove what we put in or put back in something that we took out because we didn't even think about it. That's what this is. This is them really double checking our work and making comments on it.
So it's for the big ahas, potentially then, okay, thank you.
Did I call you Sam?
Not yet. No, yeah, just my final thing is, and I think as Laura mentioned, for instance, when I sent in my comments on the P O C D, those are public record and people do get to see that. And I also just, because I have a policy mindset, I think things in writing have the ability to be more substantive and more in-depth in terms of a perspective than when you're speaking verbally. When you speak verbally, things tend to be a little more theatrical, and I think when you're writing, there's an ability to focus more on detail. And for instance, when things are submitted, like written testimonies submitted to the legislature, many of those people will still come before those committees and speak, but then they'll attach 30 pages of research and facts to add up what they're speaking to, which you just couldn't reasonably speak to in a public hearing, nor would the public really want to see all that information. But I would say me as a commissioner would want to see if they have information and research to back up what they're saying. I would want to look through that, but those are just my words.
All right. Anyone else? So what's the consensus? 5 and 5? And then it's up to the committee. If there's time and people want to come up again, we continue it, because I have no problem doing that.
I agree with
You know, if
that.
it's 1 o'clock in the morning, that's a different story.
Yeah, I agree.
But we do have
It's-
the ability to call it though, correct?
Yes, we
Okay,
do.
all right.
And
Just wanna
again,
make sure
even
that-
at 1 o'clock, if we're still hearing new testimony, we're gonna stay. But if it's, you know, people just keep driving something home,
Okay,
right? So there's consensus, 5 and 5. We're gonna start at 6:30. And there is no end time. Whenever it's over, it's over. And it has to be in person.
And just to confirm, are you the only one speaking at that meeting from this council? Is that the way that
None of
works?
us speak. I start the meeting like this and I just call names.
Yeah, that's all I meant.
One of you,
Yeah.
whoever sits next to me, who's the vice chair? Bob. So Bob can run the clock
Yeah.
and just, that's it. And we sit and we listen. You know, and this is where it's difficult, because some of the residents will think we're not paying attention because of the shelf in front of us. You know, they're gonna think we're on our phone and we're writing notes down. But they can't see what we're doing. So, you know, you've got to try to acknowledge, and I'm just as guilty as doing this, but when public communication's over and you got 2.5 pages of notes, then I think they get, you weren't ignoring them. They were talking so fast, like him, and you're right, and that's why when George gives us his statement in writing, it's so much easier for us because I don't have to write the notes. So. Good. All right.
So I'll sit-
Oh, I have one further comment. This is down the road a little. Are we going to, once we come to a final draft, and then it goes to getting ready for the referendum, are we gonna have them vote on this draft that we made? Or are we going to pan out each particular change to vote on?
Well, I would think you'd have a red line.
Some of that is gonna depend on that
Legislation.
yeah, that new legislation we talked about last week. And then that's a decision, and frankly, I asked the town attorney and he wasn't sure either. Because when I was involved in a charter revision before, I wasn't involved to this extent. But, so does the council, and I believe it is the council, makes the decision on the questions as far as, are we gonna break them out or are we gonna do it as one single? That's what I believe. I don't believe it's the commission that
The
makes that
changes,
decision. I believe it's the council, because the council sets the questions. The commission, I'm sure could offer suggestion to the council, but that's what I believe, but we still have to look at it
Yeah,
further, because
so-
neither of us have been involved to this extent. I think the previous assistant attorney was the one involved last time, Maria.
Yeah, I mean, it's just a thought that, that we have to start thinking about.
Right, I still think the document that Sheila publishes should also be the same document, once it's edited, final by us and the council, same red line document, so somebody knows that's what was changed.
Yeah, because my own opinion, I don't want somebody to come in and just look at, oh, these were the changes. I want them to read the
The
whole
whole document.
document, and I think that's fair.
Can I clarify something? So I wanted you all to have a chance to read it. I really call it a cover letter, the draft, and it's really a cover letter. That is not going to be published, or my intention was not to publish this until it was ready to go to the council, because this is to the council. So what I was going to publish with your approval is this sheet that I gave you all, which I think you wanted everyone to see all the suggestions that were made and when they were voted down, if someone wanted to watch this. And then the red line, as it is now. So
Yeah.
in order for me to get the notice in the paper, and once that notice is in the paper, the public has to go to be able to have a place to go view these documents. That notice is gonna go in Wednesday, which is the day before our next meeting. It will go in the 25th. So I need your approval to publish what I have as is. This is a draft. It can be changed still. If you all look it over and then you say, no, we need to tweak this, I will put a second draft up there. It'll still be a draft. You know what I mean? But we'll keep it published so the public can see this was the first one and this is what they changed on the 27th when we meet again, if you find things that you want me to change. But I have to have your approval to put something up there because that notice has got to go in before you all meet again.
You said you put the notice in on the 25th? One day
Did I say
before?
the 25th? No, that's not what I meant. I'm putting the notice in Wednesday, I said.
This
Wednesday.
Okay,
This Wednesday is when it will be
Yep.
published. I
okay,
have to send it to the paper tomorrow.
yep,
Because
okay,
I use the zone, so it's less expensive.
yep, okay.
And your name's missing from one of these roll calls.
Yes, I know, that's what I was saying too, right here.
So what's that?
That, it just was in Ken's name.
Oh, I see.
No, but, you know, I'm like,
Now, what do you want?
Ken. I mean, there was one, he wasn't,
Oh, I missed Ken.
yeah.
Good.
I know, I was reading it on my lunch hour today.
Do we get consensus for that so that she can publish? I mean, or post it on our website?
Go ahead, Phil.
So the notice goes in, say, a week before, does it also go on the town website?
What is that?
When does it go on the town
The
website?
notice itself goes in the newspaper, not all these documents.
Does it go on the town's
The
website?
the town's, so when I publish any public hearing notice, it goes on the town's website. It'll go on the charter revision page, also my legal notice page on the town website. It also, I do an e-blast to anyone who's signed up to get e-blast from the town. I also send it to the libraries and the senior center. And then it also goes on my board outside of my office. So,
We're still required to put it in the paper though by law, state law?
we are still required to put it in the paper by law, yes.
Out of curiosity, what's the circulation of the biggest paper in town?
I don't know what.
Not
It's
much.
called lobbyists, that's why it exists.
Yes.
Well, I know that, but it's kind of like, it seems like social media today, especially if we're not gonna do this for another 10 years.
Well, when the council holds their public hearing,
Hartford Current and the CT and stuff.
Yeah.
this entire red line charter has to be published in the newspaper when the council holds theirs. So that'll be a pretty penny.
Wow.
It's
Is it
required.
Costs a lot
budget?
of money, yeah.
I mean, it seems that,
I put it in.
say,
for
Popular
next year.
Social
You'll see
site
it.
should point to the town website and let them know that it's available.
Sheila, just a general question. So when I look at these, when we, this here, when we have things that are voted down, but they weren't by a consensus, I'm seeing that on the first page, for instance, we say something was voted down on 123-25, 7-2. We don't have names next to that. But then 2 down after that, we have voted down 8-1, and we actually named the person that said no.
Yeah, I tried to put the person
Okay,
that said no. I mean, the information is available in the minutes. It's also
okay.
available on our recordings.
Okay,
But this initially was my notes and then
Sure.
it turned into something a little bigger.
right, and I just was wondering if that was, and that's what we were thinking is gonna be published as well for us to see, correct?
Right,
Having that
because,
information.
only because I think the chair brought up a couple meetings ago that the public should really see everything that was
Sure.
suggested and why. And then the dates, at least if
Yep.
they're curious, they can go to that meeting date and go either look at the minutes or the recording,
Yep.
the video.
Do we want to keep? And this would be a question. Why do some of these have names and some
And
don't?
that's-
Most of them were because they
Yeah.
were,
We asked.
we had consensus.
Yeah.
Right,
Yeah,
I
but-
understand,
right,
but
right.
what about the ones that aren't here?
There's one
And,
We said consensus, right? The majority of the
Yeah.
people, that's what it was.
right, which,
that's
so we
why
don't
it's
need,
We don't need that.
and that's what I'm saying.
All right, so I
Yeah.
should be
That's where I'm getting
consistent.
at that.
Okay.
Right,
Okay.
I'm saying,
Yeah,
why do we
absolutely.
need names?
I don't think we do.
I don't think we, like, so if there was like unanimous consent to do one thing or the other, I just wrote unanimous, but if someone's like super curious, they can go to the minutes or watch
They
the
can go to the
recording.
minutes, sure.
Right,
Like, so it's not there, but.
right.
I think you're right. I will take care of that until.
Okay,
it's all.
right, and
Right,
I-
I
I'll
mean,
take the
if-
vote
If
numbers
somebody
and-
really wants to see it, they can go to public records,
Yeah.
but,
I recognize myself.
So my only question is that one, that we had a 5-5 vote,
Yeah, and that actually only has,
just voted down.
it's no.
Just voted down.
but in that one, Sheila, you actually had 4
I
names.
missed 10.
Yeah,
I know.
yeah,
So I have to say
No,
you're
it doesn't matter, the vote was no.
Exactly.
And the reason
For
for that
consistency is
is,
great. Mhm.
at the public hearing,
When it's,
we want to take personalities out of it. That's
Yes.
why even the questions, we remove the names. By doing that, it removes the politics.
and that was the reason why I was bringing that question up, to ask why we were doing some names on some votes on here and some names not, and that's what got me. I didn't know if that was the process that we do, but I just wanted to bring
Right,
that up.
no, that's good. This way, Bob, because he wanted counselors to get 100,000 a year. People aren't gonna know that.
Your email's gonna blow up now.
I know. People are gonna think that, yeah.
All right, anything else? You all set with the public hearing? Okay, so, any commissioner comments, communication? Bob?
Yes, I would like to, formally commend Sheila for your time and effort and your hard work
Yes.
in putting all of these
Oh my goodness.
documents together. I think we all.
Yeah.
Well,
Great job.
I want to say the same thing.
Have a life,
Yeah. Poor thing.
I want to
on the
say,
26th.
I want to say the same thing to all of you. I mean, you've taken time out of your personal lives to sit with this. This is the constitution of the town. And,
Laura spent a lot of hours on minutes.
and for the most part, I mean, this went very well.
Yeah.
We didn't always agree on everything, but we stayed within respect of each other and moved it forward, and we ended up finishing up sooner than we thought. So let's get to the
Yeah.
public hearing and see what the public has to say about our work. It's kind of like being graded.
Yeah.
And then we'll come back and figure it out. So after that, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.